Hi, thanks for tuning in. This is a weekend review for the week ending March 31st, 2023. Month has ended. Quarter 1, 2023 has ended. We have some quarterly charts to look at. A couple things I want to point out. PPO bear cross, EMA 5 crossed bear below SMA 10 on the quarter. First time that's happened since Q2 2010. A couple things also to note. The high of last quarter was 410.49. The close of this quarter was 409.39. That's just an inside quarter. That's all that is. Nothing to write home about. You look at the monthly. We have a clear higher low pattern in play. High, pullback, high, pullback. Is that it? We'll see. Monthly PPO has reset to 0, is curling up, and the histogram is putting in that rounded bottom, just like you had that rounded top that marked the top. The ultimate signal comes on the monthly time frame, either from an EMA 5 SMA 10 bull cross or histogram flipping positive, like you had way back here, August 2020. Zoom into the weekly. Above all the moving averages, less the 80. Stuck in a range. Zoom into the daily. You've got PPO reset to 0, which is what we look for, putting in a higher low. Histogram just rocketing higher. No trend still. Again, everything is just coiling tight. And this is the theme here for Q1 of 2023 on the indexes. They basically have gone nowhere now. Going back to really February 2022, S&P 500's flat. All that negative sentiment, and she's flat going back 13 months. Okay, either way, we're going to keep moving. We're going to look at all the quarterly charts and drill down. Okay, of note, closed above the previous quarter's high. So QQQ is leading SPY. QQQ pulled back to the 20. Put in a reversal doji after setting an all-time high. We're looking for an all-time high, or we're looking for a lower high up here around 369. Either way, that's what's on the table, and there's a lot higher prices coming, in my opinion. And if you zoomed into the monthly and you used DeMark, you would see that this is a TD9 buy setup on the monthly. You don't have that in TrendSpider. I'd have to log into Thinkorswim to show you that, but you can take my word, or I can share it, or you can search for what I've posted on QQQ, type in DeMark from MarketWizard87 on Twitter, and you'll find it there as well. But you could see just an obvious uptrend, a market that is trending higher and has been in a convincing uptrend, really going back to 2017, which you closed above this high here, set during the dot-com crash. So that's obviously a very, very important level. But as you can see, pull back to the 50, PPO went negative, reset, curled up, right? Was at 16, went negative. ADX was all the way up here at 52, is at 0. Okay, that's how mean reversion works. ADX will reset to 0, PPO will reset to 0. When that happens, big money will either continue to distribute or continue to accumulate at those new levels. And if you look at QQQ monthly, it's the 50. Go figure. If you look at the weekly, it's the 200. Go figure. Big money only really wanted to buy at the 200. 200 hasn't been tagged on QQQ weekly in a decade. Okay. And we just sat there for almost 9, 10, 11 months and people threw in the towel. That being said, the strongest ETF, looking for a rally up here to 329, fill these gaps that have been left open from way back here. So this is the next sell setup, but this is obviously an uptrend that you want to buy, and throwbacks into 314 and the low of last week, 304 are for buying. Strongest ETF is QQQ and SMH. As you can see here, just absolutely everything that we just talked about on QQQ is also relevant here on SMH. Did close above the previous quarter's high Also had a TD9 buy setup on the monthly, reset to 0, recapture all the monthly moving averages. This is what mean reversion in an uptrend looks like. See, ADX goes to 0, PPO goes to 0, histogram puts in a rounded bottom. Okay, rounded top, negative sell signal, boom, peak in the low, aggressive buyers we're adding right here, November 2022. You zoom into the weekly, above all the weekly moving averages. This is a very strong uptrend. ADX at 38, PPO in just an absolute monster trend mode. Just kind of like you had back here. You're in one of those environments right here, this period. I'm not saying you're going to get the same, rally coming out of COVID. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying we're looking for a challenge of all-time highs on SMH and QQQ, and at a minimum, 271, but really 318. And SMH is just very, very strong. I was all over this throwback setup in March. I know no one wanted it. That's just how this works. Either way, we're going to now look at the weakest ETF. And this ETF looks nothing like the other three, which is absolutely incredible. This is a bear flag on the quarterly, just sitting here at quarterly 20 for a year, one full year, 4 quarters at 170. ADX hit 0 and is now trying to curl up on the quarterly. EMA 5, SMA 10 bear cross on the quarterly. You look at the monthly, put in a 510 bull cross. However, the 20 is sloping down and we're below it. This is much weaker than the others and closed monthly below the 50. Again, for the 4th time now in that year. If you look at the range, 169 to 162 has been where they've been buying, and 200 has been where they've been selling. This is how I look at IWM. Avoid. Do not touch. There's no reason to touch this. You have other names that are working great. This is not working. You look at IYT, you see a very similar story, right? And so this is the non-confirmation I'm getting right now. The rally higher in Qs, right? Rally higher in SMH is not being confirmed by transports or small caps. Is that making sense? So this means there is a risk if IWM and IYT do not play catch up heavy in Q2, there is a risk that the rally that you're seeing in QQQ and SMH will likely come up short of an all-time high and pull back again all the way down here to where we were just back in October, challenging the lows, putting in something more of a triangle. There's no reason you can't do something like this. All right, so we're looking, this is how I use Elliott Wave or just patterns in general. We're looking for structure now that we've seen that this corrective pullback or this mean reversion within the context of an uptrend, right? Now that that's ended, you want to see what the bulls have left in the tank. But the point of me bringing this up is IYT, the transports, XLF, right? IWM, these things are not confirming the moves higher in tech, and that is a big red flag. That being said, QQQ closing above the previous quarter's high, XLF closed inside like SPY, IWM inside like SPY, transports inside like SPY. So SPY closed inside, right? So really, are you just having QQQ and SMH lead markets higher again like they've been doing for the last decade? That's what it looks like to me. Let's throw the ball around the horn. Look at the dollar. Okay, could not close 2 quarters above the high from 2007. That is bearish. We've broken the quarterly higher low pattern that's been in place going back to 2021. Last quarter, they closed below the previous low of 27.98. Now they broke that low, closed inside. Okay, so there's just an inside quarter, but what I'm telling you is this looks like a top. Okay, this looks like a double, triple top, whatever you want to call it, as long as she can't get above 28.97. She gets above 28.97, we got something else to talk about, and the pattern would be evolving at that point. Then you look at the monthly, right? You've got this bear cross that's just happening. The histogram's flipping negative. This is a sell signal, not to mention the 510 bear cross. So what this is telling us, and again, now we want to use the subjective, right? So if we know momentum is dead, okay, we are looking for corrective patterns now. Well, based on how this looks, where momentum comes down, closes above the quarter high, can't rally, gets rejected at the 10, we're going to be looking to see if the 20 holds. Does 27 hold? And if not, the structure that you're going to see is more likely a zigzag than a flat or triangle. That being said, the dollar is weak, and this is what's enabling a rally in gold. Okay? And if you look at gold, this is an incredible cup and handle setup on the quarterly chart. Pull back to a rising 20, ABC structure. Right? Look at that structure of the corrective pattern while mean reversion is taking place. And now you see, again, back at this 185 level. I mean, it's absolutely incredible. 190, 193, 194, 195, whatever you want to call it, 185 is clearly a breakout area here. There's clearly been supply. Shorts getting short up here. Okay? Now what? You zoom in and, the weekly looks okay. The monthly just crossed bull and closed above the previous month's high, 181.73. So to me, this looks very, very bullish. And if the dollar is crashing here and pulling back a zigzag, something like that, then you would look for gold to outperform. But don't be confused here. This is still an uptrend, okay? This is still in an uptrend and could pull back to 26 and then set another high, okay? So let's not draw very grand conclusions from a cup and handle pattern that hasn't been validated yet. This is just an awareness. Let's throw the ball around. Let's take a look at TNX now. Quarterly higher low pattern has broken, the same one that went back to 2021. That being said, you got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This thing looks done. I'm looking for something like this. Pull back into the 2s, into the 10, into the 50, into the 20. On the quarterly, on the monthly, I'm looking for a pullback here to the 20, maybe even the 200, and start to put in a much more broad trading range for a while, which is generally what this thing does. Right? This thing went into trading range here, 2012 to 26 years. Okay? What has this thing now done? It's basically just skyrocketed up 1,000% in 3 years. So there will be a point where she does go sideways. And I do believe that's happening now. That's what the monthly histogram rolling over, the quarterly uptrend breaking is telling us, that you've reached the consolidation point. You zoom into the weekly, this uptrend has broken. And we don't have the momentum that we had back here. As you can see, this momentum rolled over right here. And we've been rolling over ever since with each consecutive high. And now what appears to be lower high. Okay, so if the 10-year is pulling back, that must mean bonds are doing well. Let's take a look at the quarterly chart on bonds. Inside quarter, TD9 buy setup on the quarterly. You zoom into the monthly, we don't have a buy signal yet, right? No 510 bull cross, no histogram flipping positive, no PPO. We have a downtrend where ADX is at 40. This isn't a void, okay, until we have more data. So in terms of the intermarket analysis, SPY versus TLT, right? The reason we're bringing all these things up, SPY's still outperforming TLT. The market is still telling you to own equities over bonds like you should have been doing since 2020. SPY versus gold. Look at this. So pull back below the 200. That fake look, just like we had back here, and boom, right back above. Very interesting look. What's also of note is that going back here to December 2021, you do have what looks like a triangle, a descending triangle. A, B, C, D, E. Look for this level to be very, very important in this ratio. SPY versus the dollar. Okay, gave a buy signal to start the year by capturing a declining 50 and 200. Pull back, close below the 200, setting the bear trap, instantly recapture. This to me is telling you your dollars should not be in the bank. The dollars should be in the S&P 500. And you look at commodities, and what we see is equities are outperforming commodities going back to July of 2022, June and July. If you look at performance year to date, clearly Bitcoin and Riot are leading, followed by SMH, the semiconductors, who have been led by NVIDIA, who's up 94% on the year. Bitcoin up 70%. And then here are some other names worth note, right? ACLS, AHR, SE, OMAB, SHOP, Cedral, ARC, etc. Just something to look at to show who's performing best in Q1 and who it is we need to identify as leaders so that we can own the leaders and outperform the S&P 500. That is the ultimate goal. So coming back here, let's take a look at some of these individual stocks that we've owned. NVIDIA being the lead in my portfolio. I put 33% of my portfolio in NVIDIA in October of 2022. It now represents nearly half of my portfolio because it has doubled. We have PPO, again, this mean reversion that I've been talking about so frequently, right? Corrective pattern. That's the structure. Is it a zigzag? Is it a flat? Is it a triangle? Are we pulling back to a rising 50, a rising 200? Yes. So the uptrend is clear. There's clearly an uptrend. There's clearly a corrective pattern within the context of an uptrend. Momentum is saying, yeah, we're going to pull back to zero. ADX said, yeah, we're pulling back to zero. And when they got to zero, it was the low for NVIDIA. Okay? And you zoom in, you look at the quarterly, and you'd say, yeah, there's no reason. You know, the market loves to top in threes. There's no reason that's not a 1, that's not a 3, and that's not a 5. So we'll have to see how this one plays out. But so far, looks pretty good. For buy the dip, Crocs, same idea. Looks beautiful. Again, weekly inside close after breaking the high. You look here, wave 4 should not go below 105. That being said, dips into 105 are for buying. This is obviously an uptrend. The hardest part of trading and investing is buying things that are in uptrends and not being attached to things that are in downtrends. I'm identifying names for you that are in obvious uptrends that are very, very easy to see visually, have provided mean reversion pullbacks to moving averages that are clearly in uptrends. And so we're just going to keep doing that here for a few more minutes and wrap up this video. So Crocs is another one. Obviously an uptrend. Let's take a look at ACLS. Obviously an uptrend. This thing is a freaking monster. Is she going for all-time high here at 320? Certainly could be. Any pullbacks into the 80s are absolutely strong buys. It might be that she just rallies off of this close above 120. Either way, I'm just going to keep running through some names that you should be looking at. AEHR, quarterly, all-time high, new close. That's as bullish as it gets. Okay, so while SPY has done nothing for a year, you can go back to that same low back here in Q3 of 2021 or 2022 and see that individual names have rallied up hundreds of percents going back to that low. Another name I like, Opera, OPRA. Okay, we're just going to keep doing this here, DHR, and you'll start to see that all of these stocks are in uptrends. DHR I'd like less, but it's still of note as she comes in here to the 200. Look at it, ascending triangle, A, B, C, D, E, and we're going to see a break of this triangle very soon. Hopefully it's a bear break, false breakdown, set the trap, tag the 200, right, sometime in the coming weeks and months, and then rally there all the way back to all-time highs. ALG, okay, all-time high quarterly close. You see the similarities here between all these charts. Either they've pulled back to what's obviously support in an uptrend while ADX has reset to basically zero or a trough, and we're buying as mean reversion, or we're looking to buy the breakouts, right? So all of these names that I'm showing you right now have those things in common. They're either closing above the previous quarterly high, or they're looking at something like Google where it's a pullback to an obvious uptrend, an obvious moving average that is in a slope that is positive, while ADX has reset to zero. You want to see an ascending channel. You want to see PP. You want to see the histograms curling, right? All of these charts have these things in common. And we'll take a look at a few that are a little bit different. Like DNMR was below the previous quarter's low and closed above the previous quarter's high and at the quarterly 10 for the first time since IPO, basically. Okay. And if you look at Airbnb, inside month, okay, closed above the previous quarter, right? So these are the names that I'm looking at for Q2, and I hope this helps you guys. This is the process that I follow. I like to identify the macro intermarket analysis. I like to look at, are we playing offense or defense? Clearly, equities are outperforming. Clearly, QQQ and SMH are outperforming IWM. The data shows that. We don't have to guess. We don't have to have an opinion or an ego. And we can just react. We can allocate accordingly. And if there will be a much larger correction, which I do believe is coming, but probably 3 to 6 quarters, 9 quarters away, we'll see it. The ratios will flip.